I welcome you to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, Retold as Story. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, Retold as Story. The bells of the Roman garrison signaled the end of the workday in Corinth, but in the north market the heat still rolls in waves off the stone pavement. Felix, a man whose back was permanently stooped from years of hauling concrete at the Lycian harbor, wiped the salt from his eyes. He sat on the edge of the limestone fountain, his legs aching with a deep throbbing fatigue that made every bone feel like lead. Linus, a younger man who worked as a journeyman for a local dyer, sat down beside him. His hands were stained with a deep parchment indigo from the vats of purple dye that the wealthy of Corinth craved. Usually Linus was full of the nervous energy of youth, but today his face was clouded. As they sat, Rhoda approached. She was a widow of 70 years, her face a map of trials endured, but her eyes held a clarity that often made the younger believers feel as though she could see right through their pretenses. She carried a small bundle of leeks and a dry crust of bread, the meager portion of the poor. "You both look like men who have seen a ghost," Rhoda said, her voice cutting through the din of merchants shouting their final prices. "Not a ghost, Rhoda," Felix grumbled, massaging his swollen knee. "A mirror. We spent the morning listening to the brothers read the new letter from Paul. He talked about the ancestors. He talked about the cloud and the sea, and the bread from heaven with Israel in the Old Testament." Linus leaned forward, his indigo-stained fingers interlaced. "It's the ending of that part that won't leave me alone. Paul said that even with all those miracles, God wasn't pleased with them. Their bodies were scattered in the wilderness like discarded husks. He said these things were examples for us, Felix and I. We were just talking. If the people who saw the sea split in half couldn't stay consistent, what hope is there for a wine hauler and a dyer in a city like this?" Rhoda sat on a low stone bench beside them. "The wilderness isn't just a place in the desert, Linus. Corinth is a wilderness of its own. Look behind you." The men turned. Looming over the city was the Acrocorinth, and nestled on its slopes were the glittering temples. The smell of burning fat from the afternoon sacrifices drifted down on the breeze. It was the smell of social standing, of business deals, and of revelry Paul had warned them about. "Paul mentioned the sitting down to eat and the rising up to play," Felix said quietly. "My foreman, a man named Varro, told me today that if I don't attend the banquet for the Harbor Guild tonight, I shouldn't bother showing up at the docks tomorrow for work. He knows I follow the way of Jesus." He laughed and said, "Felix, your God won't mind a little meat in a song. Don't be so stiff-necked." "And what did you tell him?" Rhoda asked. "I told him I'd think on it," Felix admitted, looking at his feet. "I told myself I was standing firm. I thought I can sit at the table and just pray in my heart. I'm strong, I won't fall. But then I heard the letter, if you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall." Linus hit his fist against his palm. "It's the same at the dye works. The master wants us to swear the oath to the city genius before we open the vats. He says it's good luck for the color takes to the wool. Everyone does it. If I don't, I'm the one who causes the batch to fail in their eyes. I feel the temptation to just whisper the words to fit in to keep my job. Rhoda reached out and took a hand of each man. Her skin was like parchment, but her grip was steady. Listen to me. The ancestors didn't fall because they weren't religious enough. They fell because they wanted the security of Egypt more than the promises of the rock. They ate the spiritual food, but they craved the meat of idols. They wanted a God they could control, a golden calf that didn't ask for their hearts, only their ceremony. But how do we stay consistent? The pressure is like the weight of the sea, Linus asked. Paul gave us a secret, Rhoda replied. He said that no temptation has overtaken us except what is common to man. You think your struggle with the guild or the union or the dye works is new? It's the same old snake, just wearing a Roman toga. But God is faithful. He provides a way of escape. Felix looked up. I looked for a way of escape today, Rhoda. I looked for a back door at the docks, but there wasn't one. The escape isn't a door, Felix, Rhoda said firmly. The escape is the cross. Consistency isn't about your willpower, it's about your loyalty to the one who took the stripes. When you feel the grumbling starting, the urge to complain that God hasn't made your life easy, you're testing the Lord. When you think you can flirt with the temple feast, you are inviting the destroyer. She leaned in closer. Do you know why the ancestors were scattered? Because they forgot they were a body. They each looked out for their own stomach, for their own safety, their own lust. But look at us. We are one loaf, Felix. If you don't go to that banquet tonight, you might lose your wage. And if you do, Linus and I will share our leeks and bread with you. That is the way of escape. The escape is found in the love of the brothers. The two men sat in silence as the reality of her words sank in. Holiness in Corinth wasn't a private meditation. It was a public defiance of the city's greed. I won't go, Felix said, his voice gaining strength. Varro can keep his union, his guild meat. I'd rather have a dry crust with those who discern the body than feast with those who devour it. And I'll stand silent at the vats, Linus added, a smile appearing through the indigo stains on his face. If the dye fails, it fails. My soul isn't for sale for a pot of purple. Rhoda stood up, adjusting her shawl. Then you are standing on the rock, and that rock is Christ. He followed the ancestors through the desert even when they were unfaithful. He is here in Corinth too. Don't grumble. Don't test him. Just walk in the love he bought with his own blood. All three of them walked together away from the marketplace. The evening air seemed lighter. The temple still loomed and the temptations remained, but they weren't walking as individuals trying to be holy. They were walking as the body, watching for the escape and holding fast to the rock that never moves. Okay, thank you for listening to this part. God bless.